this is very important. Of course, you know this case out of Virginia. This involved the Department of Justice and the Virginia governor's office, Governor Youngkin, who had this amount of people, 1,600 at the case that was before, ultimately, that has the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals now, that a district court judge said those 1,600 non-citizens, they filled out paperwork. They are legally residents inside the United States, but they are not citizens, so they shouldn't be on the voter rolls. And the governor attempted to remove them from the voting rolls, 1,600 names. And the Department of Justice, which is kind of bizarre, you would think, why does the Department of Justice say we need to file a lawsuit to put 1,600 people on a voter roll who shouldn't be? They don't have a right to vote. They don't have citizenship. And by the way, do you want to get those people in trouble? Because if they did go vote because you sent out a get out the vote, or even just something generic from the state, like make sure you're using your vote, here's where you go, and that came in your mailbox, if you live in this zip code or you live in this neighborhood, and you went and you voted and you thought it was okay, but you were actually not a citizen, but they told you to do it, you can imagine the scenarios. And then, of course, you can get into the theories of voter fraud. The fact is, if you can find 1,600 people's names that you know are on the rolls that shouldn't be, I mean, how much worse is it? So the Department of Justice filing this lawsuit, trying to say, no, you can't do this with the voting rolls. What does this mean? Well, the ACLJ, by the way, we filed yesterday. So we are in this case at the Supreme Court. So we took really quick as you could take action at the American Center for Law and Justice. The timeline the Supreme Court has set now, it put a stay in place of the district court. So what that means is Governor Youngkin in Virginia can go ahead and remove those individuals from the ballot, from the voting rolls, so that they are not, their names aren't there and they will not be listed. If they did come, they would not be on the voter files. The Department of Justice, again, could try to speed this up, but the election is, of course, next Tuesday. People are already early voting all across the country. So if you look at the timing, there's no way that this stay gets lifted before Tuesday. So this is the first, I'd say, big victory going into this election. And you may say, wow, 1,600 names. We all know how close these elections are. We all know how important not just the presidential race could be, but also all of the other races going on in Virginia, the congressional races. So 1,600, yeah, it may not sound like a ton to you. You can win a state based off that many voters. So again, huge victory. ACLJ taking quick action there, protecting election integrity. We're also looking at a case that is, again, going back to the Supreme Court tomorrow to prevent illegal aliens from voting in Pennsylvania and having those votes counted. So that's a second case. The ACLJ, remember we talked about using those, making sure we had the resources this election season to both handle situations that come out before Election Day, and a lot of this because Election Day started, 2-3 weeks ago in many places with early voting. Of course, and then you got to handle the issues on Election Day, and then you handle issues after Election Day as well, which we know there are states already saying, like Pennsylvania and Michigan, and there's probably 3 or 4 more, who are saying there's no way we're going to have our votes counted that night, not even to the wee hours of the morning of the next day. It's going to be, at least 48 to 72 hours till we'll have a definitive number to be able to know who won the presidential race in Pennsylvania, who got the most votes, who gets those electoral college votes. Same in Michigan. So you have to have the resources. And that's why we've launched our election hotline for you at aclj.org. If you have any questions, if you feel like you've got a legal issue, go to aclj.org/election hotline. The important part of what we're doing right now is taking the resources to make sure there was a fair and free election. We have to be ready at the ACLJ as someone to protect your vote and who gets elected, to really fight. And we're talking about more legal battles. We'll get there when we get there. Right now, you make sure you vote. And maybe you're like me. When you find out and people call you names like garbage, you're inclined to maybe have more people go vote and get more active.
And just the other day, a speaker at his rally called Puerto Rico a floating island of garbage. Well, let me tell you something. I don't know the Puerto Rican that I know, or Puerto Rico where I'm in my home state of Delaware. They're good, decent, honorable people. The only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters. His demonization of seen as unconscionable.
To me, there is no way we are hearing that wrong.
Biden's call started at 6:53 p.m. He tweeted out this at 8:31 p.m. Earlier today, I referred to the hateful rhetoric about Puerto Rico spewed by Trump's supporter at his Madison Square Garden rally as garbage, which is the only word I can think of to describe it. His demonization of Latinos is unconscionable. That's all I meant to say. The comments at that rally don't reflect who we are as a nation. So they're trying to play back. So that's about 90 minutes after. This comment was right up at the beginning of it. The White House simultaneously released the transcript of the call, in which people are now calling apostrophe gate, because they added an apostrophe after, in the word supporters, they put the apostrophe after the R. So trying to say that it is singular possessive, talking about Tony Hinchcliffe. This is like a Soviet-style propaganda campaign run by the White House, because even CNN was like, okay, you watch the clip. There is no way that what we just saw was a hard stop. He wasn't talking about one person.
Well, and actually, the person he's referring to, if you really listen to the statement, and we can play it again, but listen for the second time through, is he says it over and over again, his rally. He's talking about Trump. A speaker at his rally called Puerto Rico a floating, island of garbage. And then he goes back through and says, he's talking about his home. Then he says, back to his supporters.
Right.
His demonization. Okay, how many times he literally, through stuttering it, said 3 times. The only his in that statement was Donald Trump. So the only supporters are voters of Donald Trump, or people who are planning to vote for Donald Trump. They may have tried to find a creative way to say he didn't say what he actually said. But by the time they actually put that out, other people were already condemning him. I mean, the thing is, well, you would hope, and Logan, the fact that you could get ahead of this in seconds if you thought this was real. If you had heard that the way everyone else heard it, the statement should have been real time.
Not only did it take the wind out of the Democrats' sails about this, look how bad they are, the comedian called Puerto Rico garbage, and now they can't really use that effectively anymore. No, but here's the odd timeline. Joe Biden had this call with supporters at 6:53 p.m. when it started. Harris was taking the stage at 7:15, 18 minutes later, to give what they've been billing as the closing message, the biggest speech of her lifetime, on the ellipse with the White House in the background. So not only did it take the wind out of the argument that look how bad they are with Tony Hinchcliffe, on social media, I saw maybe one clip of Kamala Harris from her speech that was supposed to be billed the biggest thing ever, 75,000 bureaucrats attending, because, it's easy to get that crowd that large when you're a Democrat in D.C., but no one is sharing her speech. Everyone is talking about.
I don't know if it's made him.
What the sitting president
I think I
said.
saw one picture of it. These are unnecessary, self-inflicted wounds. And when you do that, it happens at the end of campaigns that are flailing, because things are not running smooth. Obviously at the White House, obviously between Joe Biden and Harris, and on the Harris campaign.